Okay, let's look at propagation. This is the lemongrass here. We tend to just grow it in a pot, but you could easily take this one here. We could easily break that into like 15, 20 plants. And outside in this weather, they'd be booming, you know. We don't use that much of it, so we're quite content to leave it in the pot, you know what I mean. If we had gotten to do that rock wall and everything had gotten in on time, then this would be, a clump of this would be there. It'd be looking real pretty. Okay, so now I'm looking for plants I'm going to take cuttings and divisions from. So we're just going to do a couple because we got to get upstairs and talk about cooking. But so I'm cutting these guys all so they have some green growth and some somewhat hardened woody growth, okay? And then we're going to come over here to the place where the soil is. This is our potting table here. And so we're going to use modest sized pots because we don't need them to be real big till they root. Once they root, I'll step them right up, okay? But you want to take these guys, you want to get your soil first, you want to get your soil moistened. Okay, just soak those pretty well so the water's coming out the bottom, and you got to be slow because it'll blow out because it's so light. While they're doing that, what I'm going to do is greatly reduce the leaf mass on this because I want this plant to live, right? It has no roots. There's no way it can support this much leaf. They're all going to wilt. And the plant will keep trying to support all those leaves and it'll just die, okay? So I want to greatly reduce how many leaves there are. So I'm going to basically take off all the big leaves, and I took off, I don't know if you saw, I did it kind of quick, but see these tiny leaves on the bottom here? They were all along the bottom of this, right? And I took those all off because that's where roots can come out from now, right? And I'm going to bury this guy right, actually I'm going to bury it a little bit up to the green. See how this is brown here and then it starts to get green? So I want a little bit of that more hardened off green there too. And then, I don't want much of this either. I want most of that gone too. That's what I'm going to try and root, okay? I might not even have that much. I might take this guy off and this guy off. I want some photosynthesis, right? But I don't want the plant to not be able to get water. I don't want the leaves to wilt. I should be ready to stick it right in. We're kind of cheating a little bit here because we want to get up to the class. Likewise with the rosemary, right? I tried to cut it so that there's some softer growth and some harder growth. I'm going to stick it in up to about there, and that might be problematic because I have to stick it sideways. These guys aren't that big. And I'll put a little bit more on there. You see how much I'm pushing it? Totally firm because otherwise there's not going to be any capillary action. So does somebody else want to try doing one? Yeah. And meanwhile, I'll do the sage and then we'll talk about dividing the tarragon. And some plants are incredibly easy to do. I started stevia from seed this year and got plenty. But if I didn't, I could root stevia in about 3 days, you know. The rosemary, I'd say, yeah, just pop it in there and firm the heck out of it.
Right here?
Yeah, the rosemary, I get probably 60 to 70% take usually. And you know they're taken when, like right now, you'd have to pull a little hard to pull them out because they're firmed in really well. But you can tell just by how you tug on them and how they respond that they're rooted. They won't show any growth, and you don't want to do anything with them until you see growth. Once you see growth, you look at the bottom, you see roots at the bottom, then step them right up so they can keep going. And that can be anywhere from a 2 to 4 week process with these kind of guys.
Is this your same soil that we were using?
No, this is actually a fancy potting soil that has more of that same inoculant in it. And actually, if I had more time, I'd go over and grab some of our spent soil, which is a little heavier. These guys don't really care much about what soil they have right now. I mean, they're just trying to get their roots going, you know, and I'm going to move them as soon as they have much root at all, right? But this is a lighter mix. And if we have a day where we miss some watering, this could dry out and then they'd be going south. So if I have a heavier mix that holds a little more water, I'd be better off. This mix is great for our seedlings. It's designed to be light enough to ship. You know, so it's a commercial product designed for a niche, you know, and it's not the ideal one for rooting something like this. You know. But I could probably make it work. I love doing this part and I give them the attention they need. Okay, so this here, like I said, you'd mostly start marjoram from seed. But I look at this and I go, I got 2 plants here. And so I would just, once again, I should water it. But since getting to the water is not that easy, I'll just cheat. I can just break it apart. Yeah, right, you know. But actually, I got 3 plants, you know. And if I looked in here, I could probably get 4. You know, and these probably all were individual plants. When you seed these kind of things, you look at a lot of the herbs that you buy, there's multiple plants in them all the time. Yeah. But now what they need is they need immediately to get into the soil, get firmed, and really, if it were a hot sunny day, these guys would all go under the table. They wouldn't be here now. They'd spend the next day or two under the table till I saw they were reliably not wilting. You don't want to let them wilt. If you wilt, you're starting to lose the battle. Yeah. You know, you want to keep them so they don't wilt. And then the other one to look at is this. And this I do want to water because it's, yeah, right there, yeah. Just give it a good soaking.
Could you tell me how long it took those leek seeds?
They were planted in early June. So no, actually those aren't mine. Those are planted. I'll have to look at the thing. Those aren't. I planted ones. They already got planted out.
This is 721.
Yeah, these are planted. Yeah.
Germinate.
Oh, to germinate. We use a germination chamber, so we get germination within like 5 to 7 days.
Mine just started coming up after 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, well, what you might try is a dome of some sort to hold the humidity in. The other thing, a critical thing to know about alliums, right? If you are trying to, like, you know, do an Elliott Coleman, he says to not really cover your seed very much so oxygen gets to it. You're doing your leeks and your onions no favor. They have to have dark to germinate. So if they're not covered well, they may...
Maybe I moved them down. I thought they were not going to germinate, so I put them under the table.
So that's it probably. You had too much light, you know? So, yeah, just cover them well and they'll probably germinate a lot faster, you know? Okay, so here we are.
Pat has a whole video on cuttings and propagation online too already if you want to see more about it.
So first off, I do the, see, right there I didn't want to do that. I just pulled off more root than I needed to. It doesn't really matter. I mean, any root at all, I'll cut this down proportional to the root that I have. Any root at all with some green on top and I can get it to grow.
Can you ever knife that apart?
Well, the thing about knifing is that I'm going to cut off more roots. If I can do this right, I'm going to actually save more roots. Yeah. See, I mean, that root there I got to save. I mean, it broke the big part, but there's a lot of root that I would have cut off of it. Yeah. So this is going to have to be watered right away too. And if I were pushing it, I could probably get this little guy here to come off with root on it too. Maybe I will just to show. Pretty easily. See, so there's another one. Pop this guy back in here. And I'm just going to tell you that I'll look at the other one and I could probably get 1, 2, 3 more off of this. I'm not going to do it now because time-wise we don't have time. But if somebody wanted to try, you could certainly come here and try and see how you do with it, you know. It can be frustrating. Sometimes you end up with a lot of plant and just one tiny piece of root on a big old, you know, stem. But that one tiny piece, you just cut the root down and it's going to be okay, you know. You just have, I mean, that's, I'm sorry, you cut the leaf down to match the amount of root and you're going to be fine. And that's okay with this because I want some tarragon. Except for I don't want, can somebody else cut this? Because I'll put dirt all over it and there's no use having to wash the dirt back off it. I'd cut it down to about right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this guy here, since I'm not going to divide it, we'll just go in a bigger pot for now.
Is this guy going back to the kitchen?
Yeah, that's going back to the kitchen. And this guy is going to go right in there, except for we need a better pot, so we're going to double this up. And we're going to fill that one slot with that guy there.
Oh, with that little guy. Okay.
Yeah. Pardon? Yeah, if you water that, that'd be great, yeah. Okay, any questions on that? So you see, that's the only way you can produce these is by dividing the roots, you know, and it really is like twisting apart. And, you know, once in a while, like I did that pull, I pulled a whole bunch of root off from a plant. I didn't pull so much that I hurt it, but if I was slower and more careful, just kind of shake and twist and gently yank, you eventually get them apart, you know. The more time you take with it and the more soaked it is, the better, the more likely it is it's going to work easily.
So we're going to top this guy off too, right?
Yep.
We're about there.
Yeah, that had a fair amount of roofless size. I'd go more like there.
Okay.
And if I didn't have to come back, if I was able to just leave and go back up to my permanent home instead of being here at work, I would stick all these under the table because I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. But I'm going to be here tomorrow, so if they can get, the more you have them under the table, the weaker they are. So the more you can give them as much sun as they can stand. You know, you're better off to like leave them there till mid-morning, and then the beginning of the first bit of wilting, slide them under the table, and then if you're around and you notice that the sun is now not as strong at 2:30 or something, bring them back out. That's better, you know, because then they're not getting weakened by a lack, you know, they want that sun. That's what makes them strong, you know. But if you don't have time, you stick them under the table, it just takes longer. That's all, you know. Okay, yeah, if you'll water that, I think we can head back up.
These guys need it too.
Yeah, that needs it too. Yeah, just take it on the way out and hit it with some water.
Is that duckweed under there?
Yes, it is, yeah. We use duckweed for feeding soldier flies and feeding tilapia. This is kind of like a mother, you know.
Oh, okay.
I take this and then we put it in other places. We got it going in a little pond that doesn't have any big exit.
Tilapia up at Grandview?
Yeah, there's just 4. There's all 4. It's just a beginning experiment, you know, and it's
Okay.
about in our soldier fly room, you know, and so we're looking at creating whole systems, you know. We're not in, you won't be eating tilapia anytime soon.
Yeah, right.
You know? Right. Yeah. But maybe someday, you know. Oh, by the way, this is another one. This is from Cuttings. This is actually a Japanese citrus. It's a cross between a mandarin and lime. And they use it mostly for the incredibly aromatic rind. So it kind of qualifies as an herb. What I discovered is the leaves are also wonderfully aromatic and are great in curries. So you get this more interesting fruit than to me a kaffir lime, along with edible leaves that you can use too. And it roots pretty easily from cuttings.
Do the leaves stay that soft or do they harden?
No, you'd pick the younger growth, you know, definitely. And it, by the way, is the second hardiest citrus. It can take most of our winters. Only a deep winter will kill it, you know. It's called yuzu. Yes, it's quite expensive. I would be growing it to make money, but you know what would happen? As soon as my crop came in, the price would come down. That's the nature of farming, you know. So.
Yeah, from the episode on the way out there, we see it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's that epizote is much quicker to go to seed. I'm less interested in it. The other one is that's slower to go to seed is to me a superior one. But if you don't mind tons of seed, it's fine, you know. Right now it's kind of competing with my bay. I'll probably come back and remove it and make a dish with it, you know. But we get that popping up everywhere, and indeed, I was telling this one grower how good it was, and he said, I'm scared of it, you know, and it's going like crazy. I said, well, you got it one of the more heavily, they're very variable, so some seed a lot more than others, you know. That one there, I wouldn't plant in the garden.
No,
You know?
he looks like he would invade everywhere.
Yeah, it'd be, you know, it wouldn't be hard to pull out, but you'd be pulling it a lot. So, yeah. Okay.
Or if you don't want me to.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna share the questions with everybody, but we can answer questions. Yep. The question was, she's amending a new garden and she went to the stump dump and bought topsoil. Now, I don't know which stump dump, and I'm not gonna say, I wouldn't wanna know which stump dump, but I can tell you that most stump dumps that are selling you topsoil are mostly selling you well-rotted wood product.
Okay.
And that's not soil. Soil has clay, silt, sand, you know, and basically the way you get that usually, now unless they happen to be tuned into somebody who's developing and is taking, you know, robbing all the topsoil from some development, topsoil is not easy to come by. Who's going to give it away? You don't get to take it off a place and go back and get more, you know.
So is it bad to put rotted wood into your garden? That's not a good thing? I don't know.
And you well wouldn't know, and it's a moving target. Okay, it depends how much wood, and it depends on what your local biology is. So we get piles of wood chips delivered, right? In one pile, it's as old as the others, and it's wonderfully broken down. We're putting in our compost tea because it's got all the right fungi. So if you have the right fungi and you luck out, it's not a problem. But if you don't have the right fungi or you can't get them in there, then that wood is going to be tying up nitrogen while the slower fungi are breaking it down.
What would you use then if you're starting with red clay?
I would use lots of cover crops, the best compost you can get, rock dust, and thyme. If you don't have thyme, then I would buy some of those other composts and stuff. You know, but people find that if they use a lot of those composts, what happens is that the compost is real high in phosphorus and potassium, and real soon they have so much in that they can't really add more. And you want to be able to add it continually because the compost is more about adding that good life, you know, continually feeding the good life. So I go with some amount of compost, rock dust, other soil amendments that you get from what you need from soil test, whether you need calcium or magnesium and stuff, you know, and you can call the radio show with the soil test and we can talk about it, you know. And then I would add cover crops to that and grow that looseness, you know, grow that biomass of roots, you know, knock those down and grow another cover crop in it and give it more time. And meanwhile, intensively do a very small area where you'll add a lot of compost. And you know that eventually you got to give it a rest and use up all that phosphorus and potassium. Meanwhile, the rest of your garden's getting better. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's more complex, you know, and everybody does it and you might luck out, you know. I know people that have put tons of wood in, they had the right fungi, it worked great. I know other people that are like, I think I ruined my garden, everything's yellow, I don't know why. And I go up and say, well, you're putting all this manure in, but the manure is 70% sawdust, you know. And they're like, what am I going to do? The garden's dead. I'm like, well, you know what you could do without spending a lot of money on fertilizer is save your own urine and feed them diluted urine 10 to 1 twice a week, and that'll replace the nitrogen. And that's the big...
On medication.
I don't know. It depends on the medication. I mean, if you've got good soil activity, a lot of that stuff's going to get eaten up. I don't know that it's going to be taken up. I would like check the plants and see how they look, see how they're doing. You know, I wouldn't use anything that's got any kind of, you know, if there's some like that has mercury in it, like the way that vaccines and stuff, I'd be real careful of that. But if it was just antibiotics and you had like, you know,
I'm talking about ongoing medication, like for heart trouble.
yeah. Frankly, I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that. I would just have somebody else in the family that was healthy do it, you know. That's the way I'd go, you know. You know, it's a lot of people are scared of that anyways. If you're really doing that and you want to be careful, you would let that stuff sit at 68 degrees for a month, and then you would treat it like fresh manure anyways, just to be certain. There really shouldn't be any pathogens there. Salmonella is a rare one that can be transmitted that way, and a couple tropical diseases. But if you're putting it only to the base of the plants, you know, and mulching them well, only when they're young till they get going, you know, and then you come back with some other kind of fertilizer, maybe alfalfa meal later on if you still have that nitrogen problem. You know, I try to avoid having that nitrogen problem, but these folks were healthy, they didn't get sick from doing it, and they saved their garden basically. They would have had to wait probably 5 years before all that wood that they added had gotten to digest it, you know. But by doing that, and they could have bought fertilizer, but that's not who they were, they didn't want to do that, you know. So, okay, let's keep walking while if you have other questions, I'm happy to answer it, but yeah.
The barley, that's what you're growing out here, barley?
The question was, do we have barley growing out here? What we have growing out here is buckwheat and cowpeas right now. And also we added in sunflowers and other flowers. We're doing an experiment to see which flowers will come up in our cover crop because we want more diversity. And what we saw is of the flowers we planted, the ones that were big enough and fast enough to come up were the sunflowers and the bright lights cosmos. They are right up there and competing with the buckwheat and the cowpeas and will be blooming real soon, which will be very gorgeous.
And are you getting that buckwheat from Walnut Creek, or is there a local?
We buy buckwheat locally and we buy it from Walnut Creek. We try to get organic. Probably Seven Springs Farms. I mean, Fifth Season, which buys from Seven Springs.